In this exercise, I want to focus on a running outline tool and the column tool. I'm using the traditional toolbar, but the graphics bar will perform the same functions with regard to creating the shapes. The stitch types will be an outline run and a satin fill. There are two main uses for the run tool. A, to provide detail to the design, and B, to connect one object to another. I will use both. The object is to create a design with a minimum number of thread trims, and to do that you need to have a plan for the sequence of objects. Beginning at the bottom of the cup, I will work upward. My plan will be to create the saucer shapes, then digitize a run line to the outside handle, leaving the inside of the handle and body of the cup to join with the lip. Then a run stitch to the right edge of the lip and create a thin line and backtrack to give the run stitch some strength, before completing the lip of the cup and finally the wisp of steam. Select the column tool and the stitch type and choose a colour. I'll just roll the mouse forward to zoom in. Be careful here not to have your first 2 points too close together, or you may create a thread break. So offset them a little, which serves us well because we do want a point on this section of the satin stitch. So 1.68 millimeters is fine. So that were 2 left clicks. And because this is an even arc, I'll just do 2 right clicks in the middle and a left click and another offset left click at the end, and we should get a fairly regular shape there, and almost true. Now we need to reshape here. We've just missed the object at that right hand end, so I've got my reshape tool up. I'll right click on the line, on the vector line, and just drag down so we're a bit closer to the real shape, so we've got a bit of a distance or a gap between both of those sections. Now I'll hit the escape key, which will neutralize that object or deselect it. I then have to select the tool again, and we'll do the same thing. Now this curve's a little more complex, so we'll need a few more input nodes. So these are right clicks, and be careful to put these nodes as near opposite each other as you can, because remember that determines your stitch direction. You don't want big long straggly stitches. You don't want this point back up here, you want it back opposite. So these are all right clicks. Just move these toolbars out of the road. Right click, and left click, then hit enter. I'm pretty happy with that shape. Now I'll select the running stitch tool. This is the other reason for running stitch. We're going to connect this object to the outside handle. So it's a left click to begin, and right. We want this to run fairly well down the middle of that black, so this stitch is going to be covered up. It's just a connecting stitch, as I mentioned. Now if I hit the space bar, it should toggle me back to my input A, or my column tool. It saves me dragging the mouse back up to the tool. So it'll toggle, the space bar will toggle you between the two tools that you're currently using. So a left click and a left click to begin again, a right, and we'll finish with a couple of left clicks. Again, H brings up the reshaping tool again, and I'll just drag that node up, create another node and drag it up. Okay, so we've got a better looking shape there. I think that's fine. That'll pull in a little. That's good. So select the tool again and click. Try and digitize with as few input nodes as you can. You're going to get a cleaner shape and a better curve. The tighter the arc, the more clicks you need to make. Might have to realign this. It's getting very close to the edge of that satin stitch, and it may expose itself if there's any movement in the fabric when you're stitching. So just move this back into its normal location, or at least my normal location, and a couple of left clicks, and I'll hit enter. I'll just with my select tool, if I hold the number 2 down on my keyboard, it will allow me, and left click, it will allow me to select the hidden line, or the next layer of stitching. H again on my keyboard to bring up the reshape tool, and I'll just drag that. I now need to select my running stitch tool again, and left click, right, and I'll just get to that point and left click, and I'll end that object right there. I'll zoom in to get closer to my work, and then I'll digitize another running stitch. So this running stitch is to provide detail, and the previous one, this one here, is just a connector. So select that piece that I've just digitized, and I'll use the backtrack tool to come back. So now my cursor is here at this point where the white cross is. I can now change back to my input A tool and begin digitizing this column. So it's right click, a couple of left clicks to begin with. Now I'll roll my mouse back to zoom out, so I'm getting a bigger picture. It's all right clicks. Now that looks pretty horrible there, but you'll watch when I click again here, it'll pull that line back closer to where it ought to be. So we still need to do a bit of adjustment. And I'll finish off with a left click and another left click. So P, the letter P, to bring up the pan tool, which I can drag the artwork and the design back to the middle of the screen. Now with my reshaping tool, I'll click on that outline, right click, which created a round node, and I'll just drag that in to correct the shape. Now I'm going to hit escape to neutralize everything. I'm going to left click on, this is my travel toolbar. I'm going to left click on what I call the 3 tulips, and that'll take me to the beginning of the design. Now I'm going to right click on the scissor icon, which will identify any trims in the object or in the design, and there are no trims. We'll talk about connectors a little bit later, but what that's telling me is that I've got the sequence correct, and each object is within a certain distance of each other. So the end of the first object is within, say, 2 millimeters of the beginning of the next object. You can see a bit of a problem here. I'll just zoom in and pick this object, hit H from a reshaping tool, right click on the vector line, and just drag it up. And another one here. Okay. I'll select the tool again. And left click, right click, right click, right, 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 and a left, and a left, and hit enter. So check with my travel toolbar again, left click on the tulips, which takes me to the beginning of the design, and then right click on the scissors. So it's gone right through there without a thread trim. It's going to thread trim between the cup and the piece of steam, the wisp of steam. So let's have a look at that connector value that I was talking about a minute ago. I'll select this object and come to my connectors in the object properties. And after the object's finished, I want to use jumping stitches to get to the next object. And I want you to trim if we're moving more than 2 millimeters. So I'll just zoom in there, and just to demonstrate this, if I was to change that value to say 12, that trim disappears. But of course we don't want that because it's too big a gap. So I'll bring that back to 2 mil. the trim reappears. And we want to make sure that if we're trimming, that the tie off that happens before it leaves this object occurs at either the same distance or a smaller distance. So it's now selected at 1 mil, and so there's a tie off in there. You can see that little single stitch there. Okay, so it's basically how I would digitize that object. I hope that helps. So the point of this exercise is to plan your design and use the running stitches to connect objects that are separated from each other. So this part of the saucer and that first part of the handle, they need to be done in that sequence, but we needed to put a running stitch in here to join them up, and we needed to put a running stitch here to meet this little piece of outline stitch that we put there. Remember the backtrack tool, which is conveniently located under the running stitch now. So right click, turn my drawing off and turn my true view on. So that's your view toolbar, is this one here, that's T for true view. And I think that this will look fine. Those stitches there are going to pull a little apart a little, and I think there'll be a nice gap in between those when you stitch that design out. I hope that helps, and I hope you found it interesting. Thank you.